Welcome back to Mindful Conversations, the talk show where we explore mental health with depth, heart, and honesty. I'm Lisa Ford, a clinical therapist, an approved supervisor, and entrepreneur in the Laurel community. Over the past episodes, we've explored some powerful topics together. We began by asking the question, what is anxiety? And unpacked how it shows up in our daily lives. We then turned to the long-term effects of COVID-19. Hearing insights from mental health medication experts on how the pandemic continues to affect minds and bodies. And most recently, we listened to the voices of our community as they shared their perspectives on collective trauma, what it means to carry and share emotional wounds as a group. Today, we're excited. We continue this journey by hearing from a community member. They will share their lived experiences, the ways they have found strength, resilience, and coping skills to heal from collective and transgenerational trauma. The stories we have heard in our practices remind us that while trauma can be passed down, so can resilience, wisdom, and healing practices. And as a part of today's conversation, we are honored to have Shendi guide us through a somatic exercise. Thanks, Shendi. A practice designed to reconnect the mind and the body after experiences of trauma. This exercise will give us a chance not only to hear about the healing, but to embody it together. Erica?
Welcome back, everyone. I'm Erica Coleman, and I want to thank you for joining us as we continue this important conversation, all about collective traumas and different forms of it. It impacts us across many generations. However, I'm truly excited about what we're about to continue to learn, explore, and understand together as we move forward.
Yes, collective trauma doesn't just live in our memories. It settles into our bodies. When a community goes through hardship, like war, violence, or even global crisis, our body remembers. And such hardship, if it goes long enough, you may even see patterns of health issues within that community. So, how does that live in the body? How does that settle in the body? You might notice it like tight chest, restlessness, or even heaviness that feels hard to shake. These survival responses are not only yours, they share and often carry through families and generation. From a somatic perspective, it's about gently helping the body let go of what it's been carrying and helping the body to find way back to safety, connections, and hope together. So now, let's take a moment to look at the video for a simple somatic exercise, something you can do it right where you are right now to just help you to stay connected to the present while honoring the emotional wounds that can be passed down through generations and family. Hi, I would like to invite you to join me in this brief mindful exercise to help you to come into the present moment while simultaneously acknowledging the strength, survival, and resilience that have been passed down through your lineage. Keep in mind that the impact of generational trauma can live in the body, but so does the wisdom to heal from it. Now, before we start, I would like to remind you that this is not about conducting this exercise right or wrong way, okay? So for this is about staying in the present moment, how you connect to the present moment while receiving the support as well. Now, you can stand up like me, or you can sit down on the chair, however you like to do it. And you can close your eyes, you can look down, or even fix your gaze into the spot in front of you. All right? So, I'm gonna just put my hand, just notice your breath. Start by noticing your breath. Okay? And then gently start noticing the part of your body that is connected to the ground. For those who are standing up, it is your feet. And for those who are sitting down on the chair or on the ground, it is the connection between your sit bone to the chair or the ground. As you do that, just notice your breath. Allow your spine to be long and your shoulder relax. You can unclench your jaw and relax your hand. Next, I would like to invite you to take an easy breath into your nose and out your mouth. Notice the in-breath and the out-breath. And as you notice that, feel the gravity start to pull you in, inviting you to stay more settled. As you continue noticing your breath, I would like to invite you to imagine roots that are growing from the sole of your feet deep into the earth. It's a strong and steady roots, just like one of those old wise tree. Okay? As you inhale, imagine drawing up strength, stability, and nourishment into the roots. And as you exhale, imagine letting go the tensions, old fear, or weight of something that you have been carrying. With every breath, allow your body to feel supported. At any moment, you may notice you get disconnected with your breath, get distracted because maybe thought come up, and let's just notice that. It's okay, it happens, you know? And gently shift your attention back to the bottom of your feet. Press it a little bit gentler if you want to. And for those who are sitting down, shift your attention to the sit bone. Yeah, because with every breath, you are both letting go what is not for you to hold and allowing to receive grounding support from below. Pause. Yes, continue noticing your breath. As you inhale, imagine drawing up strength, stability, and nourishment through your roots. And as you exhale, let go of the tension, old fear, or weight of something that you feel like you've been carrying for a long time. So with every breath, allow your body to be supported. At any point, you may notice that you get disconnected with your breath, maybe because you get distracted with your thought, and be okay with that. Okay, just notice that gently, and shift your attention back to the bottom of your feet, and for those who are sitting down, to the bottom of your sit bone, and see if you can kind of press it a little bit firmer so you get more connected with it. Yeah, because what you're doing right now is that with every breath, you are both releasing what is not yours to hold and receiving the grounding support from below. Now, if it feels okay, allow your body to gently sway side to side, or maybe shift your weight between your feet or your sit bone. Just gentle, just like a tree moving with the wind, flexible, grounded, and alive. So you may also notice the rhythm your body naturally wants to follow. If your arms feel tense, feel free to softly shaking it off your hands, or maybe even roll your shoulder. Okay? Just let your body release what it doesn't need to hold anymore. Because movement reminds us that we're alive. So just let your body find the rhythm that feels safe and steady. Yeah. Now, place your hand, one hand here over your heart and the other one over your belly. When you're doing this, if you still want to sway, feel free to do so. If not, you can pause. However, you feel like this is the right thing to do. As you do so, bring to mind someone from your ancestry or even community figure that represent love, strength, and resilience. And this can be real or imagined. And if no one comes to mind, again, that is fine. Let's just imagine the spirit of resilience that lives in you. Yeah. Breathe into that image and let it warm you. Keep in mind, you're not starting from nothing. You're coming from a line of people who endure, survive, adapted, and love. So let that remember support you. Now take one more slow breath in and exhale slowly. Yeah. Gently press your feet into the ground one more time, feeling that connections. If you notice, I'm kind of swaying back and forth just a little bit. Yeah. And those who close your eyes, you can gently open your eyes, wiggle your fingers, roll your shoulder, stretch if you want to. Yeah. That feels good, right? And then just for the last time actually, just notice your breath. Thank you for joining in. I just want to remind you that you are here. You are safe enough in this moment. Your body remembers both pain and the way home. Yes, you may carry the pain, but also wisdom, courage, and the ability to choose something new. This is how healing begins, by coming home to the body, one breath at a time. Again, thank you for joining me.
Thank you, Shendi. Thank you for guiding us through those exercises. I think it's invaluable to listen to our bodies. What I loved mostly is that these practices like this can be done every day, and it doesn't have to be super complicated. It's just like we could just do them. There are so many simple, everyday ways that we can connect with both our minds and our bodies. Just a few minutes of being intentional, listening for our breath, or even noticing how we feel in any given moment. It is giving us a little bit of balance, bringing us back to our baseline, right? We like to use that word.
Yes,
That's
we
right,
do.
you know? It's in this small, consistent practices that build resilience, clarity, and even find a deeper sense of peace just within ourselves.
Yeah, because our body holds the stories of what communities have gone through, right? It's through war, violence, crisis. And the way we feel is not always about just ours. You know, it can be echoes of the struggles passed down through generations. You know, in other words, some of the challenge that we face today can be traced back to the past, to the experience of the families, maybe great grandparents or even early ancestry that they experienced. You know, so this is where we begin to see the impact of intergenerational trauma. We start to notice how trauma passed from one generation to the next. You know, sometimes the way parents cope with stress or protect themselves get passed down to their children. And when this effect even stretch further, it's called transgenerational trauma. Lisa will actually kind of go deeper into that, right? So I just want to reiterate here that our bodies can carry traces of fear and pain from experience that we never even personal went through.
Thanks, Shendi. Before we hear from our community member, let's take a moment to talk about what we mean by intergenerational and transgenerational trauma. These terms describe the very unresolved trauma we can carry from one generation to the next, not just through stories or silence, but also through family patterns, behaviors, and even the body's stress response. It means that the pain of the past can show up in the present, even when we didn't directly experience the original event. That's called vicarious trauma. But here's the good news. Just as trauma can be passed down, so too can healing and resilience. When we practice awareness, compassion, and intentional healing strategies, we create new possibilities, not only for ourselves, but for future generations as well. So let's listen in together as our community speaks about the paths they are creating towards healing, breaking cycles, and building a future rooted in connection and hope.
When you hear the term intergenerational, transgenerational trauma, what did it mean to you personally?
First of all, I'd like to say thanks for having me. Such a very important topic that we all need to be educated on. To answer your question, what intergenerational trauma means to me is the experiences that families go through that impact the way that we move forward as we grow and mature and raise our own children, how it impacts us
Okay.
internally. Yeah. And then transgenerational trauma would be something on a much larger scale, like from the altering of our DNA from enslaved people, or the over traumatization of the Jewish people who had to undergo the Holocaust. It's really changed their genetic compositions where they're more predisposed to anxiety and depression and things like that.
Yes. Yes. Thank you. Thank you. So, and I have a few questions for you here, right? And the first question will be, how do you think your family has shaped the way you respond to stress, conflict, family conflict, and relationship?
Well, I think that answer to that question is multifaceted. I have such a large family that I've learned dynamics from various family members, but I do think overall the trauma has impacted how I approach, how I strategize with trauma or with particular triggers resulting from trauma, and also how I raise my children to identify those triggers or the trauma, how it becomes more of an open dialogue. So it's not like family secrets, so I empower them with strategies as opposed to having to kind of figure my things out as an adult. I think it would be, definitely more productive that way, being proactive. But it's impact us in terms of relationships, in terms of coping mechanisms, and in terms of even our eating habits, just the things that carry from generation to generation.
And like you say, it's from generation to the next generations. Have you noticed other patterns in your family that seems like to pass? I know you just mentioned like eating habit. Has there anything else that you notice that pass from one generation to the next?
Yes, and as we mentioned, food really became one of our coping mechanisms for sadness and grief. Everything revolves around food, and it's contributed to a lot of poor eating habits. But beyond food, stress, just pushing stress down, just allowing it to build up like a pressure cooker, as opposed to facing things head on or being more strategic in how you deal with stress. That is something that we learned because we saw our mothers do it. We saw our older siblings do it.
Mhm.
The way they approach conflict. Women were expected to be more submissive and not be confrontational, for lack of a better word, or to address conflict head on. You know, we had roles, gender roles that we had to adhere to. And as the signs of the times have changed, it's given us the room to be able to expand that segment of trauma that we could have been exposed to.
Wow, such a wonderful statement. Thank you so much here. Um, so based on that, right? Again, we talk about trauma, how it impacted us from one generation to the next generations. I'm curious as well. What do you think the strength and wisdom that you have inherited from your family?
Without a doubt, I'm going to say the resilience and the perseverance override everything. The perseverance is that I know that I'm built from source of strength that go back many generations, but also the resilience. I have the learn the proper mindset that you can overcome things on
Mhm.
the good side of it. You know, sometimes in life we have to go through fire to see how we come out on the other side of it. And it really dictates the person that we become. Those struggles are very necessary in life. And although we try to shield our children from struggles that we endured, it's not always for their betterment. So I think we need to find a healthy balance of that. And again, that's not always a luxury that people can afford, you
Yeah,
know.
I
So
agree.
we take that for granted. But again, to answer your question, resilience and perseverance.
Okay. So my last question here, what do you think would you say to someone here? What would you say to someone who just recognized family trauma pattern?
I think it's so important to really look at that trauma, look at the patterns, look at the behaviors that you've seen exhibited by your parents or your older siblings, and not just dwell on the trauma itself, but to pull those resilient factors out of it. How did those who overcame and overcome is maybe not even the best word, because some trauma, I mean, we don't forget about it, but we build around it, we grow from it, we gain strength from the knowledge gained from other people's failures or lower levels of successes. I don't want to call them life experiences, it's going to be my best word. You know, everyone has to make their own mistakes, but you can also learn from the mistakes of others. You don't have to make mistakes just because you're entitled to. It's okay to learn. It's okay to learn what to do as well as what not to do. And I think that's a determining factor in breaking cycles of trauma and the experiences that result from it.
Okay. Doctor, thank you so much for answering all of these questions, and I appreciate your answers. And take care.
Thank you so much for having me. It was my pleasure.
Thank you, Shendi. That was a great video. Sometimes people carry shame, mistrust, or guilt without knowing exactly why. That can be an echo of earlier generations' pain, things that were never spoken about, but were felt deeply. When families see patterns like domestic violence, substance use, or financial struggles repeat over generations, it's often not because of personal failure. These patterns can be signs of intergenerational trauma that hasn't yet been addressed or healed. I hear so much strength in how she leaned into supportive relationships. Those healthy attachments are one of the strongest protective factors we know against trauma. What are your thoughts, Erica?
You know what, Lisa, that is just so interesting to hear you speak about how things like domestic violence and substance use, we often think that it was some choice that we made and not think about that these patterns are so ingrained throughout the different trauma, I mean, through each generation
Correct.
that we don't even recognize that it is something that continues to go through these patterns, right? So I just thought it was just really interesting to see that it's almost like what happens in this house stays in this house, and it allows us to repeat those traumas. So now, like hearing what was said in the interview, having that hope and that resilience and building those types of things that will go through the different generations over time
Right,
and over
exactly.
time without having to live it. It's just now ingrained. I think that's pretty
It's
cool.
reshaping.
Just how our bodies and our minds work and how things go. So thank you for that. I think that was a great point.
Yeah, and I want to build on what Dr. MR mentioned, how generational trauma impact family traditions, like eating habit or even expectation tied into gender. So our bodies does not just react to what is happening at this present, right? It reacts to the world we grew up in. Sometimes the world that we grew up in carry traumas from previous generations. So if you think about it, our grandparents may endure wars, displacements, or even systemic violence, right? Now, they may not talk about it, but the impact of that lead to their way in navigating through life based on that, right? So they may become more cautious or distant or even always on edge about money, about survival, about safety. Now, imagine growing up around that energy, right? Without hearing the words, your body feels it, right? You learn to stay alert or sometimes to shut down just so you can fit in, stay safe, or survive. To bring this together, Dr. MR reminded us something powerful. Healing from trauma does not mean forgetting what happened or pretending it didn't hurt. It means learning to see our past without getting stuck in it. Our pain can shape us, but it doesn't have to trap us. And part of that healing is forgiving ourselves when we stumble instead of carrying the heavy load of shame. Many of us repeat the same patterns, like shutting down, overreacting, holding on too tightly, not because we choose to, but because the body is still holding to something familiar from the past and unfinished. In somatic therapy, it has a name for it. It is called a survival response that never got the chance to complete. So, how do we begin to heal something that runs so deep? We're gonna start small and with new experience in the body. Moment when we feel just a little bit more calm, a little bit more connected, a little bit more safe, especially with people we can trust. This kind of healing does not happen only through thinking or talking, just like what we saw in the video, right? It happens through breath, through movement, through rhythm, and through relationship, the ways our body learn that the danger has passed. And here's the hope. Our bodies don't just remember the pain, they also remember how to heal. They remember how to come back to life.
As we come to the close of today's conversation, let's take a moment to reflect. We've explored how intergenerational and transgenerational trauma can quietly shape families and communities through repeated patterns, unspoken pain, and inherited burdens. But we've also heard powerful reminders that healing is possible and that resilience is a part of our collective story. Our guests shared how acknowledgement, connection, and storytelling can shift the narrative from survival to healing. And through the guided somatic exercise, we practice what it feels like to release tension, ground ourselves, and reconnect with the body as a source of wisdom and safety. Remember, healing collective trauma isn't a quick fix. It's a process of awareness, compassion, and a small, consistent step that ripples across generations, very similar to what you said, Shendi. When we breathe, when we pause, when we honor our stories, we plant seeds of resilience, only for ourselves, but also for those who come after us. So as you leave this episode, I invite you to carry forward one practice, a gentle breath, a grounded exercise, a conversation with a loved one that reminds you you are not alone. You are a part of a community, and together we can create a future rooted in wholeness.
Thank you for being a part of our conversation. Remember, healing is a journey. Every small step you take matters. Be kind to your mind, listen to your body, and give yourself permission to grow. We invite you to leave comments and questions. We would love you to be a part of our community and conversation. Community is essential to our social and emotional well-being. Follow us at Mindful Convo 24 on Instagram and mindfulconversations24 at gmail.com. Have a great day.